Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to Lifesaving Victoria's Aquatic Fitness Recreation Industry Professional Development Series. Lifesaving Victoria would like to acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nations, the people whose land on which we work, live and swim. I'm speaking today from Boonwurrung country. We recognise this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and we want to pay our respect to elders past and present. I'm Michael Massini, Manager of Delivery for Diversity and Inclusion, the newly formed department here at Lifesaving Victoria. I will take this opportunity to segue into introducing the Diversity and Inclusion team, which has been for 14 years the multicultural team at Lifesaving Victoria. We still have Dave Holland, many of you would know. Dave is our General Manager of Diversity and Inclusion now. Ramsey Hussaini, who's spoken at past AFAR sessions, so many of you might have seen or know of Ramsey. He is our project coordinator in diversity and inclusion. Now we have Trudy Micallef, and many of you in the industry would know Trudy personally, if not heard her name. She is our business development manager in diversity and inclusion. So our work will aim to expand beyond multicultural into working more with people with disabilities, seniors and other community groups which encompass diversity and inclusion. So we'd be keen to continue to work with yourselves, the aquatic and fitness industry, to increase access and inclusion around the water and water safety for all groups around the community. And this is what today's session is going to be a lot about, talking about diversity, inclusion and community stories of resilience, diversity and inclusion for the aquatics industry. We're looking forward to exploring what the industry will see over the next few years and present to you some informative and influential material. Some case studies we'll hear from many different people today and sharing their experiences in diversity and inclusion and some things that they've been working on over the past months and coming months. Just a bit of housekeeping. As you're all joining us today online, a couple of things to note. If you do have any questions, please open the chat function, type them in at any time. We will also have a dedicated question time, maybe after every few speakers. We will throw it to the floor and answer your questions, and you can answer questions of any of our speakers today. If you can keep your microphones on mute and your cameras turned off, that will help as well. We are recording this session and it will be made available online. So if you don't wish for your participation to be known, please hang up now. If you have any concerns, please email ais@lsv.com.au. Finally, following today's AFAR session will be LSV's PD Masterclass with leading teams. They'll be presenting on creating a culture of high-performing leaders in uncertain times. So if you've registered for that, the masterclass will be on after this AFAR session. Now, a quick overview of the agenda for today. Someone will pop that in the chat momentarily so you don't forget what I'm just about to say. From 9:30 or from now until about 10 o'clock, we'll have a couple of industry updates. And then we get into our guest speakers. So first up, we'll have Travis and Rahula from the Y, then Mandy from Active Monash, Brendan from the City of Melbourne, Mohammed from Banyul City Council. Then we'll have about 15 minutes for a bit of a forum and question time. So some questions that you can ask the panel. We'll have a short break, and then 11:15 till 12 o'clock will be our swimming and water safety education breakout room, or our pool safety and operations breakout room. So you can decide for one of those breakout rooms which one you would like to do. Just to give you a little bit more information about the breakout rooms, at the point when we do breakout, I'll explain again at about 11 o'clock, 11:15, just before that happens, but there will be a link to switch over to the water safety education breakout room, or you would simply stay in this live event if you wish to be part of the pool safety and operations breakout. So the swimming and water safety education, what you'll find out, you'll hear about resources being developed for the programs that will be on offer to support English language school students through their school swimming programs. Get a bit of a sneak peek into the new look and feel of the Victorian Water Safety Certificate, because there's a few changes going on there. Plus learn about new e-learning modules coming soon to allow students who cannot access swimming lessons with the opportunity to work towards water safety knowledge to be competent in the Victorian Water Safety Certificate. Also, Liz White from the Department of Education and Training will be in that session as well. She'll be talking about some new funding that's going to be available to schools in 2022 to take on more swimming programs. So that might be, or will be of interest to many of you from the industry. With Pool Safety Operations, Alec, our Manager of Aquatic Industry Services, has prepared a detailed session on risk management and development of aquatic supervision plans in line with the guidelines for safe pool operations. Alec will deliver some learnings from the past 12 months of pool safety assessments and his own view in complying with risk management and safety sections of the GSPO. So once again, we'll talk about how to join those breakout rooms close to the session around 11 AM. So let's get into it. First of all, I'd like to introduce Alec, Industry Services Manager, to provide some industry updates. Over to you, Alec.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks for having me. I'm also driving the session this morning from Wurundjeri country, and I'd like to acknowledge elders past, present and future of the Wurundjeri peoples. I'm just going to give a really quick aquatic industry update. We have recently transitioned our department from pool safety to aquatic industry services. So that's sort of the first update to give, which is the pool safety team has simply changed name to Aquatic Industry Services, and that is to acknowledge some of the broader functions that we're doing in our department at the moment in supporting aquatic industry. I've got a quick overview straight up of the National Aquatic Industry position statement on lockdowns. So I'm going to go into that in a little bit of detail now. Essentially, following on from lockdowns in both New South Wales, Victoria, then Queensland, and then back into Victoria again for a sixth time, the National Aquatic Industry Committee, which is the committee that produces the GSPO, have released a position statement in relation to qualifications around this period. The reference on your screen, as you see it now, refers to the GSPO requirements for lifeguards. So for lifeguards, the position statement from the NAIC, any pool lifeguard re-accreditation or license which is due for renewal during a lockdown period, that is, that it expires during a lockdown period, which extension of 4 weeks, and if the lockdown exceeds the 4 weeks, then the extension will be granted for 8 weeks, the date which facilities can reopen. There is a requirement here that aquatic facilities should consider the length of the closure that has occurred and the lapsing of the re-accreditation, and in turn the employee's ability to competently execute their duties. That is to say that facilities should consider providing in-service training as soon as practicable after opening to ensure that both the employees are competent in their role and in line with the employer's own risk appetite. Where employees are working in facilities and given skills to their own, given limitations to their own skills and competency, they should consider their own provisions where employer provided in-service training is not provided. That is to say that if a person is able to, an employee is not feeling competent, they need to consider their own limitations in that circumstance. The next is in relation to swim teachers, and swim teacher licensing is slightly different. This is the reference from the GSPO, and the position statement in relation to swim teachers is any swimming and water safety teacher licence which is due for renewal during a lockdown period, which is of at least 7 days long, shall be extended by 4 weeks from the date facilities can open under the applicable health restrictions to recommence swimming and water safety program. Working with children checks or their equivalent are still required to be kept up to date for any active swimming and water safety teacher. That's to say that there is no extension for working with children checks. Licensing organisations are strongly encouraged to provide flexible payment options for affected swimming and water safety teachers, and the licensing organisations are strongly encouraged to apply the extensions in line with the timing above as per the NAIC statement. Aquatic facilities again should consider the length of closure and lapsing of licence periods on the employee's ability to competently execute their duties and consider providing in-service training for affected employees. And employees need to be aware of their own skills and limitations again. And finally, in relation to aquatic programming instructors, this is the reference from the GSPO, and there is an extensive table in the GSPO under SB 3.4.4, which outlines all of the qualifications relevant to aquatic program instructors. I didn't include it in this presentation because of the length of it. However, any aquatic program instructor due for qualification and associated CPR renewal during a period of lockdown and the date from which the aquatic facilities are able to be reopened should be extended by 4 weeks from when the facilities can reopen. Again, working with children checks and their equivalents are still required to be kept up to date. Licensing or reaccreditation organisations are strongly encouraged to apply the extensions in line with the timing above. And aquatic facilities again should consider the length of closure and the lapsing of qualification periods in the provision of in-service training for affected employees in line with the employer's risk appetite. Employees need to be aware of their own skills and limitations and give consideration to their own in-service training. So that's the update from the NIRC. For anybody that actually wants to find a link to the position statement, this is just a screen grab from the Royal Lifesaving Society website. And the NAIC position statement is currently in their latest news and updates, along with the launch of the Social Health Economic Value of Australian National Aquatic Industry, which is an event that's happening at 12 o'clock today. But if you're looking for this position statement and its the position statement in full, if you scroll to the homepage of Royal Lifesaving and then click on this link, it's under the latest news and updates. Is probably the best way to find it, and I didn't put the link in this view because it's too long, unfortunately. Right. So my next update from industry is the LSV agreements for 21-22 have gone out. This year, LSV departments have come together to produce a single services agreement for all of the services that LSV provide to aquatic industry and combined it into a single services agreement. This has been a culmination of work through three key departments at LSV, being the training department or the public training department, the education department, and now the aquatic industry services department. I'd just like to congratulate everybody on our side for getting this work together. The point of a single services agreement for industry is to make it easier for industry to get all of their services in one position, in one place, and organised in a concise and simple way. So these agreements have gone out to key leaders throughout the industry, and aquatic industry services and education team stand ready to receive the agreements in return. If there is anything incorrect in your agreement, we apologise up front, but we're very quickly able to update those agreements and make sure that they're correct for you. So this is just an announcement to let you know that they have gone out, and we're expecting these to come back in. So these cover services such as Swim and Survive, our Watch Around Water program, our Swim Safe program, in-service training packages, pool safety assessments, the Platinum Pool program, as well as a couple of other services there. So if you have any questions about these, you can feel free to contact us at Aquatic Industry Services or the education team at Lifesaving Victoria. And finally, I just wanted to put on the event horizon our Aquatic Industry Summit, which is set to go ahead in October. Last year, the Aquatic Industry Summit was an online forum, much as we are doing today due to COVID-19. However, we are striving to have an in-person summit this year, and we're just waiting to fix on a date. We've had to move some things around due to COVID for that as well. So on the horizon, the Aquatic Industry Summit. This replaces what was the Pool Safety Summit a couple of years ago, but the Aquatic Industry Summit by LSV, and it'll probably be in the latter end of October, so one to look out for. Next up, I just wanted to throw back to Michael, but we're about to hear from Liz Tassone and Dr. Hannah Cavalier, so bear with me a second.
Thanks, Alec. And just while we're getting set up here, it's great to see national position statement from Royal around some uncertainty around lockdowns. I mean, Victoria, we've copped it worse of any state, so good to have a bit of clarity there and a bit of guidance. So jump on the Royal website to find out more information there about what Alex already discussed. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the event Q&A, the event chat, and we'll answer those questions in intervals throughout the morning. So please populate a chat as anything comes to your mind. Now, the next speakers, Liz Tassone, who's our Group Manager of Education, and Dr. Hannah Cavalier, who is from our research department, will speak to the swim teacher shortage. So once again, if you have any questions that pop up in your head while they're talking, please put them in the chat and we will answer them after they're done. So over to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Michael. I think I'm going to start us off today. So as Michael said, I'm Liz, I'm the Group Manager of Education. I'm really going to be talking you through this from a swim school perspective, and Hannah's going to talk from a research perspective and what we've done in that space. Before I get started, I just want to give a big yell out to any other parents who are homeschooling and working full time. I'm with you, we can do this. Just another week off the block and then we'll be safe for a couple of weeks and then we'll do it again. So good luck and let's get through to Friday. So Hannah's going to click through my slides. So Hannah, if you want to go to the next slide. So there's been a lot of discussions going on across industry, you know, many different subgroups talking about the swim teacher shortage. And the way that we've seen it and the way, you know, through our research and through discussions with industry is that this is nothing new. It's an ongoing swim teacher shortage that has been heightened post-COVID-19, or I suppose we're not really post-COVID, but has been heightened by the COVID situation. So we really wanted to identify that this is nothing new. We have had a shortage, it's just inflated at the moment. We wanted to understand why we have this shortage, and Hannah's going to take us through that bit where we did some Victorian state industry surveys, we did some literature reviews, and we did some stakeholder interviews. It was really important for us to look at it from a Victorian perspective because there was a lot of national surveys that were coming through and being released, but it wasn't representative of what happened in Victoria. The other states, as we know last year, didn't have the lengthy shutdown periods that we had, reopened a lot quicker. And therefore didn't have the impact that we have. So we found that on a national level, Victoria weren't being represented the way we needed to. So we did our own surveys. Hannah will take us through that. After we understood what the issue was and the causes of the issue, we wanted to know the impact. So the impact of a swim teacher shortage had on the delivery of the swimming and water safety lessons that we provide, the impact that it has on the competency levels of our Victorian children, and in turn the impact that it has on incidents and drownings as well. As we saw, the last financial year was the highest drowning on record, and already this financial year is not off to a great start. Once we had that identified, understand and impact, we wanted to look at some key actions. So Hannah, next slide. So what we did is really looked at what role that we could do to support industry. We know that industry are going through the, probably fair enough to say, the toughest time, you know, ever that we've ever seen, you know, in our lifetime. So what can we do to support and help with that burden? So we put together a scoping paper which used those 3 impacts from the previous slide, being identify the issue, understand the issue and the impact of the issue. Then went into the background. So when we said, hey, this is an ongoing issue, this isn't just a new one. Then look at some actions that have been done to date. So a bit of low-hanging fruit actions that have been done to support industry. But this is a bigger issue, and it's not going to take 1 month, 3 months to get over, and we're going to have that magic number of swim teachers that we need. It's probably going to take closer to 2 years. So how do we facilitate that over a longer term basis, and how do we again collaborate and support industry? So to date, we've done some research, which Hannah's going to take you through the next slide. LSV have offered some free swim teacher courses, which I think's had about 400 participants go through. We've worked with the various industry engagement and stakeholder groups that we've got. We've done a number of AFAR series such as this one, previous in the year, where we had lots of questions about qualifications and training and lots of feedback and chat from you guys about the swim teacher shortage and how you're travelling. And we also ran a Renew in June campaign where any swim teacher could renew their swim teacher licence for free for the next 3 years, including free CPR and 50% off first aid if required. So that's some low-hanging fruit, but it's a much bigger issue than that. Hannah, over to you.
Thanks, Liz. So yeah, just what Liz was saying. So we sent out a survey to 39 different, well, to swim schools across Victoria, and we had 39 respondents that completed the survey covering 28 local government areas. So this survey asked for current and retrospective data about swim teachers employed at the organisation, number of students that they deliver swimming lessons to, waiting list sizes, all this sort of information. And we determined that approximately we had about a quarter of the Victorian market share for swimming lesson deliveries for Learn to Swim providers. Based on this and the shortage identified from the surveys, we determined that the swim teacher shortage in Victoria is approximately 1,800 required to meet demand, which is pretty substantial. There was a 23.8% decrease in the total number of teachers employed from 2019 to 21, just across those organisations alone. So when we're looking more widely across Victoria, I mean, it's pretty easy to see the huge impact that COVID has had on this industry. We separated the results out for Learn to Swim providers against school swimming providers, and you can see those results there. So 21.7% reduction for Learn to Swim providers and a 25.1% reduction for school swimming lessons. So it's pretty across the board for school swimming lessons, and Learn to Swim, it's had a significant impact. So these are broken down again by the Learn to Swim providers and the school swimming lesson providers. So it looks at enrolled students, change in weekly classes, waiting list sizes, cancelled programs, number of students participating and number of programs delivered. So you can see across these findings, I mean, just to draw your attention, we've had a 2,500% increase in waiting list sizes for swimming lessons just across these organisations. So this isn't across Victoria now, this is just across those 39 organisations. There was a nearly 5,000% increase in number of programs cancelled, which is understandable considering the circumstances we've been under. So yeah, this just highlights the significant impact that the shortage is having and what COVID has had on the industry. And based on the literature review, this is sort of the first research that has really been undertaken extensively in Victoria. The literature sort of was on Australia more widely, or New South Wales, Queensland, and the research that had involved Victoria didn't seem to be as representative as we thought it could be. They hadn't used as a vast number of organisations that this had. It didn't represent as the number of employed swim teachers as this research has. So this is pretty new, and it's pretty important research that we've undertaken here. I'll pass back to you, Liz, for the next one.
Thanks, Hannah. So when we break it down to the really simple level, right, it's not rocket science. Basically, there's more demand than what we can supply. So we can't supply enough lessons, hence putting people on wait lists, which, you know, the industry have never had before or have had it at a real smaller level, and we can't get enough kids in. So we're going into solution mode. So Hannah, next slide. Now, we've been working up a number of solutions with a number of committees with, you know, over 130 or 140 Swim and Survive partners. And basically we came with a master list, you know, as long as your arm. We really need to break it down into key sections and then look at, you know, we could do everything in little bits, or we could focus on the top, you know, 3-4 things that are going to have major impact. So we have decided to, you know, work to the 3 key areas. So the 3 key areas are acquisition. So that's acquisition of new swimming teachers to the sector. Training. So how do we facilitate that training pathway for them and overcome some of the barriers involved in there? And then retention. We know we have a high turnover rate. How do we look at retaining swim teachers longer? So from those 3 focus areas, we've got 4 key activities that we're working on. So the first activity is we are looking at reviewing the minimum age from swim teachers. So at the moment you can do the swim teacher course for 16, but you can't get an LSV swim teacher licence until you are 17 years of age. We are looking at reviewing that and looking if we can bring it in line to 16, but it's not just a flick of the switch. We need to make an informed decision about, you know, with safety obviously being at the front and foremost before we look at changing that. So that's on the cards to do that piece, and hopefully that outcome won't take too long, and we'll update the sector as soon as the decision's been made and why it's been made, the reason it has. We are looking at targeted recruitment campaigns. So again, how do we do this on behalf of industry, but in collaboration with industry as well? So we're looking at engaging a third party to look at a 2-year industry retention campaign around swimming teachers. So we're going to do a little bit of low-hanging fruit off the back of the Olympics and obviously the swimming success there. So it's a bit of social media, come and be a swim teacher, but that's just, you know, scraping the surface, so to speak. The second part that we're looking at training is, and we've been speaking about this for a couple of months with industry, is that we are advocating to the Victorian Skills Authority about getting the swim teacher course on the subsidised list. So we have been having those discussions with them. You know, we are submitting a formal paper. So if we can overcome that barrier of cost to attract new teachers, I think that will be a really welcomed piece from the industry. And the third one, which we've just engaged a consulting company, is looking at a staff retention framework for swimming teachers. And we didn't want to come out and say, oh, okay, this is how you're going to retain swim teachers. You need to look at career pathways, you need to give them things out of the water, and that's it. We wanted to look at practical, innovative solutions, and then how can we support industry through implementing them as well. We can't just put findings out there and expect industry to implement them, because you guys are up to here at the moment. So, you know, I've already seen and discussed some of the exciting things that are coming out of there, and they're not going to be your usual solutions, so to speak. So a bit of survey work's going to go through that retention side of things. Every Swim and Survive partner will be sent the survey, and we've got our other cohorts through Platinum Pools. If you want to be sent that survey to be part of the retention framework, pop your email either into Q&A, or you can email which one? School swimming at lsv.com.au, and we'll send you that survey as well. And I think that's it from us. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks, Hannah, for those updates there, and it's provided us a really good starting point, I guess, for the next couple of years. This isn't going to be something that will be fixed before this summer. It's sort of a work in progress, and a bit of research to kick off that work is, yeah, a really good starting point. And if there's anything that's worked at your centres or your facilities that in retaining staff, attracting new staff to the centre, that can potentially be shared, yeah, let us know. Definitely welcome to feedback and real life case studies as well. I know for us in Diversity Inclusion Department, a couple of facilities or councils that we've been working with in Banyule and Brimbank have kicked off some really interesting and innovative cold employment pathways specifically for swimming teachers, which we've been working closely with to get more multicultural representation in swim teaching as well. So you'll actually hear from Mohammed, who talks a bit about that in about 40 minutes or so. But to kick off our first case study for the morning, we have Travis Sawyer from the Y and Rahula. Travis and the Y have been working in partnership with ourselves at LSV and Multicultural Department since 2013, with focuses on education to drive training and employment outcomes for the cold communities. Rahula is an employee in multiple roles at the Y down at Dandenong Oasis, and he's inspiring his community to become safer around the water and get involved in aquatics. So I won't steal any more of your thunder, Travis, or any more of your quotes from your presentation. I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Michael. Perfect. And thank you for the invitation to come and present on this program today. I'll just start off with sharing a slide, and I'll just make sure that's working okay. If I can get a nod from you, Michael, who I can see on the screen. I can't really see anybody else. Can you see that slide okay? Terrific. So as introduced, we've been running a Called Aquatics project in the city of Greater Dandenong in conjunction with the YMCA and Lifesaving Victoria since 2013. So we're now moving towards our 8th year of running this fantastic program, and it certainly has been masterminded by David Holland at Lifesaving Victoria, and you know, in its infancy, we had Alexandra Ash, who's currently the Executive GM of Recreation, who was the area manager of Dandenong at the time, and Centre Manager Trudy McAuliffe, who's actually working at Lifesaving Victoria. All launched this program many years ago, and it's just going from strength to strength. And when it was first put together, you know, the focus, so to say, was, you know, why was it put together was, well, because we were looking to increase water safety within the cold community. Unfortunately, cold community is well overrepresented in the state and the country, and the city of Greater Dandenong, with its high multicultural status, was a prime target to try and do something about that. And there was 3 key priorities that were highlighted to be focused on, being education, training and employment, and genuine community engagement. The education piece was around water safety, a focus on water safety and educating people from our core community on water safety. Number 2 was in training and employment opportunities. We were trying to create pathways for youth in particular in the core community to transition into working in our recreation facilities. And at the same time, a natural byproduct of that was the genuine community engagement, which is essentially, you know, a genuine social cohesion. So that were the 3 key priorities that were hammered out at the start of this project when it was first launched. And number 1 was the education and the water and air safety elements. There's just a couple of pictures up here to show that with the education, there's a couple of parts to it. There's the classroom and beach education models. So essentially, there's a theory-based water safety element that's taken to a classroom off-site, driven by LSV and supported by YMCA staff, where we're able to go out to local schools and schools surrounding the Greater Dandenong community and to provide some water safety theory. And then there's also a practical element where we're able to take schools again to conduct beach education and more practical learnings while out on the beach, all around water safety. And interestingly enough, although this program is heavily targeted towards schools, you can see by the attendance data that we do have adult participation as well, and some family participation too. But generally 66% of the attendances are youth and children, with that being the primary target catchment and groups that are coming through. So moving across, once we get the education side of it we move into training and development. Through the LSV, we are able to provide some funded courses to be able to target people who wish to do swimming teaching or lifeguard training, which is definitely the most popular, learning to be a lifeguard. It's really important that we're able to not only offer these courses through this avenue, but we're also able to fund the courses as well, because as we know, there are costs associated with obtaining these type of qualifications, and the courses also include first aid and CPR as well. But essentially, we're able to highlight the kids that have shown interest in the classroom education and beach education in maybe further advancing a career or getting a qualification. You know, tapping those kids on the shoulder, putting them through these courses, and then the next step, which is the third step over there, which is the surf life-saving training, where LSV are able to set up on a volunteer type status a group of individuals who have completed the training to be actual volunteer lifeguards on the beach, which is fantastic. I believe one of the main beaches is Bond Beach out there, Bond Beach. And essentially they're able to go out and do some time as a volunteer lifeguard. And essentially what that then enables us to do is then have a look at, okay, well, if there's anyone who's shown interest over the last 12 months and performing quite well as a volunteer lifeguard, it could be an avenue to work in recreation and aquatics. And from there, we're able to get referrals into potential employment as lifeguards into our recreation facilities, specifically in this case, the Greater Dandenong facilities, but we do it in some other Ys as well, locally in Casey as well. This is just a little bit of a screen show just to show the participation. This is a massive program. There is a significant investment involved, but I'll start off with the participation numbers. So moving into 7 years now, we've had over 14,000 participants. We were hit by COVID last year, obviously, so we had about 1,000 less patrons than what we would have normally have had. But essentially, we've been able to get over 14,000 people. What David Holland always likes to say is they're all social influencers. So really, we've got to times that number by 4 to see the impact of the program. So, you know, doing that gets us over 58,000 people that we've been able to impact, whether it be through their families or their friends or their local network. So those 14,000 people have all become influencers to their direct communities. And you can see here the stepping stones, starting with the classroom education and the beach days, moving into the Learn to Swim program, which is probably the other one that I didn't touch on. So essentially, once the education is done, any kids who show an interest in learning to swim are provided funded Learn to Swim lessons at Dandenong Oasis and put through a term or two of Learn to Swim. And it's from there they then move into the training, which is your lifeguard training or your bronze medallion and your beach lifeguard volunteer type work. And then we transition into employment from there. So they're sort of the stepping stones, and you can see how it all starts from the participation and then works its way up. I did touch on the fact that this program has a significant investment. So it's $50,000 a year that's spent in funding this program, and there is a split between the YMCA and Lifesaving Victoria with that investment. So this is a big program, but as I stated before, you know, this is probably one of the communities that needs it the most in the country with our diverse nature, and it was certainly validated, and we're seeing the results from it too. So we do need a lot of positive media and community stories, and we've had plenty over the years with Ramsey, who now works as in Lifesaving Victoria, actually delivering this program for Lifesaving Victoria. He started once upon a time his journey in the first step as a participant in classroom education. But sorry, Ramsey, we're a bit sick of talking about you all the time, so we're gonna switch on to somebody else now, because every person you talk to has got their own story, and they're all just as amazing. And I'd like to introduce Raula, who's been good enough to join us today, and I'm just going to carry out a little 5-minute discussion with Raula, just so that he can inform everyone around his story. I think there's no better way to tell it than how this particular program does impact people than hearing it from the horse's mouth. So Raula, are you there? I'll just unshare my screen and make sure that you're in. And can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Perfect, mate. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll see how this little interview goes. So could you share with us all where your family's from and your background story on how you migrated to Australia, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Rahul Sawyer. Thanks for having me today. I'm from Afghanistan. I came in Australia in 2015, and my dad, he came in 2008. And after that, he sponsored us in 2015 to get in. It was a long journey, but we made it, which is good.
So when we were chatting, you were saying your dad obviously came over in 2008, but you didn't get over till 6 years later. So you didn't see your dad for 6 years. Obviously, you spoke to him, but you didn't see him for 6 years. What did you and the family do while he was over in Australia?
We were in Afghanistan. Then as soon we had it, like he's in Australia, so it wasn't safe for us. We moved to Pakistan. We were just there to study or to just make our life busy. Yeah, and your dad was obviously able to work over in Australia and secure you guys sponsorship 6 years later, and over you came. So you're in Australia. How did you get involved in this Cold Aquatics program? What was the first involvement in this program, mate? So once I get into Australia, my English wasn't good, so we joined the language school. From there, Noble Park Language School. From there, we had opportunity. They should teach us a bit of the education of training for water safety. And once I get in the water, I wasn't good enough. I thought maybe I'm good at swimming. When I get in the deep water, I wasn't good. So after that, it was a short, like summer short period to get a bit of knowing about the pool once you're getting in the water. So after that, they asked us if you would like to get more education or more training at the life-saving club, so we can give you opportunity to come and help to get more education. So once they asked us, I got volunteered to do that, and we jumped in summertime at the Palm Beach Life-Saving Club. So we did training there. I got my burns there. From there, as a surf life-saving, and from there, I had opportunity to come and do a lifeguarding.
So just to summarise all of that, so you participated in the classroom education. Now you did do some swimming lessons after that as well, didn't you? So you jumped in the swimming lesson program, did some swimming lessons at the YMCA?
Yep.
Yep. And then from there, you then expressed interested in being a volunteer lifeguard. And whereabouts was that? At Bond Beach, it was where you did your volunteer work for 12 months, was it?
Yep. So the first training, it wasn't enough for me, so I had to go and do a bit of swimming at the beach as well, because we haven't had any experience of being at the beach and haven't had any water safety before. So every time like our parents, they wanted to go to the beach, so we didn't know what to do, and the water was different, so I was struggling, and it was a good opportunity to learn a bit of the water safety at the beach too.
Perfect. So this is something I wanted to touch on. You have mentioned to me before in previous conversations. Why is the water different in Australia to Afghanistan? Tell me what you explained to me.
We don't have any like beach in Afghanistan. We have like a river as as I remember when I was young, so we had like jumping in the river. We haven't had any proper pool, or we haven't had any beach there, so it was easy for us. We just jumping. It wasn't much deep water, so we could like a bit of swimming, head up, and that's it, and breathe, and stand up, and that's it. So it was a bit of different. Once I get here, it was different, and I haven't had a long period to swimming, and I couldn't like stand up, so I was getting like drowned. So that's the big issue for me, so to get to know about swimming and water safety.
I found that fascinating when you said that to me around how you weren't actually, you thought you were swimming, but you were just standing up in the river, and you actually don't know how to swim. And in Australia, there's deep water. So that was just a real big takeaway from when we've spoken around that difference from the call community coming into our country. And I want to touch on the fact that you participate in swimming lessons, so you're now employed as a lifeguard. So you went through the recruitment after being referred by David Holland and the LSV team for an interview. So you did earn the job in your own right. You went through the interview process and you're successful. How long have you been a guard for now at Dandenong Oasis?
Yep, thanks to David Lifesaving Victoria, they had opportunity to give me to become a lifeguard. And before, I didn't know what is lifeguard to be honest. Then after, once I finished my surf lifesaving at the Bomb Beach, and they give me opportunities. They said you can have a job and being a lifeguard, whether at the beach or the swimming pool. So I had enough at the beach, so I wanted to go indoor. So then after that, they helped me to get it. Then I applied for Oasis, and I got it at Oasis.
Perfect. Yep, you've been here for 2 years now as a lifeguard. Obviously, COVID has interrupted a little bit, but I believe now you're progressing your career at Dandenong Oasis. You've ventured into some other roles.
Yep, so the last 3 years I've been in lifeguarding, and also the last 3 months being as a receptionist, and also as a personal trainer, being a full-time job like.
You're selling yourself a bit short there. He's gone and tapped the centre manager on the shoulder and said, I want to do more than lifeguards. So they sat down and they had a chat and they worked out a bit of a plan. You're doing a great job on reception, and I believe even recently he was dealing with a very challenging customer and was having a one-on-one meeting, and there was a language barrier. So Raula was summoned in to be translator and did a great job with that. So already paying dividends, sort of expanding your experience beyond lifeguarding. Can I just ask you, just with the program going through it, as a newly arrived Australian from the call community, what do you see as the biggest challenge for the call community to be employed in the aquatics industry?
So first of all, language will be the important barrier that could help people understand of people and be in a new environments, mostly in working in a community which have a different background people. Also knowledge of environment where people could work, like being different language and different multicultural coming and working. So these two could be the most important things.
Yeah, definitely. And I found that interesting, that the barrier of actually working with people from a different background to yourself, it was an interesting takeaway I had. And the other thing that you've mentioned to me before is that the actual lifeguard, you didn't even know it was a job. You didn't know what a lifeguard was, and that you could be employed as a lifeguard as well. So I found that really interesting when we were talking through it. You've been through the program, just to wrap it up, I'm cautious of time, mate, but you've been through the program. Is there anything that you can recommend for future improvements for anyone who's potentially having a go at this program, or even for us to make it better from what we're already doing?
So far doing good, but just I've seen if you could employ different multicultural people to be involved. Mostly in Dandenong is multicultural environment, so that's what people needed. For example, if I wanted my people, they probably know my language, they wanted to ask me rather to come and ask someone else, because they know me and they can speak the language that I speak, and they without any doubting themselves, and they come just ask me anything. But if they could ask someone else and they would struggle with language stuff, it's be a bit hard for them to understand and to solve their problems. So that's why it's good to have like multicultural people and join our team, so which could help like better.
Great answer, mate. We've got 3 new lifeguards about to start who are coming through the program, and like Ramsey before you, you're going to be mentoring those 3 guards and supporting them for their first few months on the job, which is the hardest time from what we've spoken about. So, mate, your story gives us a great example of the pathway that we've been able to provide through the program and going through every step and getting an outcome where we've got you in working in the community as a local champion. So, you know, good on you, and thank you, and thanks for coming on today, guys. And we'll wrap up our presentation from there. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Travis and Rahula. So many takeaways there, because I guess this is our job in diversity and inclusion department, talking to people and running people through this whole pathway that Rahula has gone through over the past years, and working with facilities as well. Just a couple of takeaways I will reflect on before we go into the next speaker. Rahula just said that I think it's important for facilities to have multicultural people, and I guess the thing when we say multicultural, it's multiple cultures. And you know, looking at something like like a website like Profile ID or Social Atlas to see what cultures are commonly reflected in your community, and employing people to who reflect that community. And Rahula sort of mentioned as well that language might have been a bit of a barrier when you first started, but in this case, it's actually a strength, because you can get people from different cultures who speak basic English, but they're very obviously fluent in their first language, and that all of a sudden becomes a strength to facilities where they have really high attendees from different backgrounds and cultures. And yeah, just seeing that your workforce reflects your community, and our next speaker will talk to that in the area of disability as well. I guess I'll just close on saying this is a system or a pathway that we've rolled out in multiple areas across the state over many years. And I'm more than happy to speak with other facilities who are interested in just nutting out a little bit more into how this could or would work for the facility, for each facility, from the participation and education level right up to training and employment, as you know, with Rahula as a case study there. So I'll pop into a chat our email. It's multicultural@lsv.com.au, but you know, this is something that we've done for many years and looking to only expand into the future, especially with staff shortages as well. I think it's a great opportunity there. So I will throw over to our next presenter momentarily. It is Mandy from Active Monash. She is the Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator at Active Monash, and the team there are passionate about providing opportunities for all members of the community to be physically active. And their vision is participate your way. I will hand it over to Mandy now and tell us a bit more about what's happening across their facilities.
Thank you very much. I'll just jump my screen over. Okay, just a thumbs up that you can see that, Michael. Perfect. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. As Michael said, my name is Mandy Walker. I'm the Acting Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator at Active Monash. I'm very grateful to be presenting today and share what we're doing within our facilities, not only for our community, but for our staff as well. Hopefully we'll be able to inspire you a little bit to look towards your own processes, programs and day-to-day operations to see how you can be more diverse and inclusive with everything that you do. So as Michael said, the Active Monash team is extremely passionate about providing opportunities for all members of our community to be physically active. Our vision, Participate Your Way, focuses on providing varied programs and services for all ages and abilities, with a strong emphasis on inclusion. We review all aspects of our business regularly to help identify and reduce or adjust barriers where possible. So having a look at our community opportunities to start with, first and foremost is our membership and pricing. It's recently been changed to reduce that financial barrier to our communities by simplifying the fee structure and the membership options. So we currently have a 4-tiered system, and the prices have been set along with discounts to consider the demographic of the community that are eligible for concession rates, to ensure that we're not only accessible in terms of the bricks and mortar buildings and the programs and the equipment that we offer, but we are reducing that financial barrier that some people do face with committing to their fitness. Active communities is also another new and very passionate branch that we have. It's our way of connecting the community to our team outside of a standard facility program as well. So a couple of programs that we include under the Active Communities umbrella is currently we have Active Winter running, which is a range of free activities across Monash Council, working in collaboration with the local sporting clubs. So activities include a walking basketball session, a bodyweight circuit that runs regularly at a local park, barefoot bowls, table tennis, and even golf sessions with our local golf courses. Our water safety program that's kicked off at the moment as well is an 8-week introduction to water and water safety for residents who have not participated in a swim program before and have little to no water safety awareness. The program is free of charge to those who meet the requirements, including both the parent and student being on a healthcare concession card. So we have received funding specifically for that program to be able to have that introduction and get more people active and safe in the water as well. We also have our 3-on-3 basketball program, which is aimed at children between 10 to 12 years old. Again, it's a subsidised opportunity to introduce the participants to skill development, problem solving in teams, and independently through game-based activities. And it's also helping to develop those leadership skills with the kids off the court as well. And finally, with Active Communities, we have a program called Park Life, which is a partner event with Proud to Play. It's providing an opportunity to everyone to participate in sport, exercise and recreation while making new friends within the community as well. Again, this is a free social program that runs at our local sports fields, and it's open to all genders, ages and abilities. We also run women's only swimming sessions. These are run out of our Clayton Aquatics and Health Club. They're run once a month on a Sunday evening from 6:30 till 8 o'clock. Entry is free for members, or if it's a non-member, it's just a standard swim entry. The facility is staffed by female-only staff at that time to create that safe and comfortable environment for women within the community to participate who may not feel comfortable coming at any other time. Again, opening up those opportunities for everyone to be able to access our facilities. We have our attendant support initiative, which has been running with us for quite a number of years and is very widely popular. It's designed to make our facilities and programs accessible to everybody in the community. So the program offers a dedicated staff member to provide personalised support and assistance to access the centre, all aquatic areas, gym facilities and equipment, as well as personal changing processes and just general support for the duration of whatever recreational activity they're participating in at the centre that day. Active abilities, there's 2 streams to it. So there's our inclusive swim school and there's our group fitness class for children. So for the inclusive swim school, it's a one-to-one support for that student to be able to participate in our core program. But we start out with a lot of getting to know you and building up the relationship between the swim teacher and the student, really working what's going to work best for that student to be able to achieve within the swim school. And then our Active Abilities Group Fitness class is for children aged 6 and over, all abilities, which includes fun activities to help build strength, fitness and fun in a supportive and inclusive environment. We also partnered last year with This Girl Can with Victoria Health. So we received a $15,000 grant from Vic Health to promote the campaign, and we hosted a series of free events. Now, due to COVID, we had to adapt and run these events online. Some of the webinars that we hosted included Reach for the Rainbow with Lisa Westlake, Training Principles for Women and How to Avoid Injury with Michelle Wright, and Helpful Tips for Improving Your Body Image with Jodie Arnott. These were widely popular. We've recorded them all and we've uploaded them to our website as well, so that anyone can access them at any time. Definitely something we would love to participate again in the future, hopefully in person and not online. And finally, our most recent community opportunity was we held our very first Pride Night at Monash Aquatic and Recreation Centre. So in April of this year, we hosted a free event which was to promote inclusive and accessible physical activity for the LGBTIQA+ community and all of their allies. The event was open to everyone to celebrate Pride and experience our facilities in a friendly, welcoming and inclusive environment. Activities we held on the night included a DJ, aqua class, Zumba, yoga. We did a learn to float class instead of a learn to swim. We had lap club running, and we had access to the gym and just general aquatic facilities. It was a huge hit, and we are in the processes of looking at how we can run these events more regularly, which would be incredibly rewarding. So now, looking from a workplace opportunities perspective, diversity and inclusion is embedded into all processes when it comes to our recruitment, especially from our advertisements right through to our induction processes. Every interview mentions the fact that we do operate to a very widely diverse community, and that it's an expectation that as an employee within Active Monash, that's a part of your core values as well, is to be able to be a part of that community. We believe by keeping diversity and inclusion as one of the main focuses in every department recruitment process, it helps to incorporate an inclusive mind in all of our teams. To date, Active Monash has used the workplace reasonable adjustment process twice to assist with recruitment of staff that don't quite fit in that black and white position description standard recruitment process. With every new event and program we introduce at Active Monash, our entire team undergo detailed and high quality training to ensure our team are prepared to continue to offer the most inclusive service that they can. For those of you that do regular inclusion training within your industry, you'll know that there's such a broad spectrum. So we're constantly looking to see what's something new and relevant to what we're doing to keep our skills as sharp as we can. Each training session as well is conducted and designed to be delivered in consultation with key groups or organisations. So we're not experts on it. We want to reach out to the experts and invite them into our doors and have them share their stories and really get the message through in a positive way. Finally, the Integrated Practical Placement Program, or IPP program, is a partnership between Active Monash, Homesglen and Wise Employment. This is our biggest project at the moment, and we're extremely proud and are learning so much each week from this program. The following slides that I'm going to go through will cover some of the areas and considerations for our learnings so far. Okay, so just a little bit of a timeline of how we got to where we are today with the IPP program. The entire process dates back to 2018. Shannon Stab presented at the National Sports and Inclusion Stream. From here, networking with organisations began, and we partnered with Victoria University for a work experience placement program. Our first class of students came through the centre in November of 2018, and they graduated in December of 18, so a short-term placement program. In 2019, we held our second Victoria University work experience class of 9 students this time, and we had one student who successfully applied and was hired as a lifeguard. He's still very much a valued member of our team today, and was one of the ones that we went through the adjusted recruitment process with. So there was a lot of learnings having him come through work experience, and then for us to be able to look at our recruitment process to make sure that we are being accessible to people to be able to join our team. We also applied twice for the federal government ILC funding, but unfortunately we were unsuccessful. Even with 2 failed attempts for funding, we pushed on. So in 2020, The partnership between Active Monash, Holmes-Glen and Wise Employment was formed, and then the process of implementation for IPP began. Okay, so implementing the program was alone a well over 12-month event. There was a lot of work that was done prior to that, but the implementation was very detailed and very thorough. So we wanted to make sure we were taking our time. The most effective way to have the entire Active Monash leadership team on board was to consult with them regarding processes along the way. While Shannon and Matt were driving the program, they were fact-checking processes to make sure that they were in a position to deliver the best opportunity possible for the students and for our organisation to deliver the program. A selection process was completed with Holmes-Glen to determine which students would be most suitable for the program. The program is run across our 4 key departments, so Aquatics and Inclusion, Operations, Customer Experience and Health and Wellness. This way we're opening up opportunities to the students that they themselves may not have considered when first applying for the program. Of their 5-day week of the program, the first day of each week on a Monday, they spend in the classroom with the Holmes-Glen staff. And the other 4 days, they're on site with us. They're completing direct service, whether they're a pool deck supervisor, an aquatic consult, they're shadowing the lifeguards or working reception. And they're also learning the admin tasks for each of those departments as well to give them that whole picture of how we operate and what we do. By graduation, we're hoping to have all students successfully obtain their AusSwim Teacher of Water Safety, their pool lifeguard, their CPR and their first aid. The supervision of students is shared between us and the Holmes-Glen and Wise Employment teams. On the days that the students are on site at Active Monash, they're split off into their departments and they're working directly with Active Monash staff, but we do have the other teams there and available to support us should we need it. This has really helped to build a relationship between Active Monash and the students, but it's also helping the students with their independence as well. For those that are currently completing their AusSwim, which has been interrupted due to COVID, once they've completed their hours, we're going to work with them to reach out to their local aquatic facilities to complete their training hours off-site from Active Monash. So we want to help build that, that confidence in themselves to be able to start doing things like contacting somebody to complete their hours, and when they're qualified, have that experience in preparing to apply for a job as well. So our learning so far, as with any program, we're constantly learning from our current processes and adjusting as appropriate. So far, we've learned that each individual student requires their own level of support when completing their roles and duties. Having conversations with the students, Holmes-Glen staff and the parents, if necessary, has been extremely helpful, and the parents have been very supportive of the students coming through the program. At the end of each rotation, we're providing opportunity for everybody to give feedback and adjust where we need to, ready for the next rotation. So each rotation runs the length of a school term. It highlights the importance of treating each person as an individual, as all of these year's students have demonstrated their wide spectrum of abilities and strengths. Unfortunately, most people tend to have an unconscious bias opinion of people with a disability and their abilities to perform. We've had it demonstrated to us time and time again so far this year exactly how capable the students are when presented with support and the right opportunity. An example of this is a student who is known to be very quiet, doesn't like to make eye contact, and she's very introverted. She participated in a Learn to Swim interview as a part of her admin hours as an applicant. And she quite surprised everybody on the panel when we came around the table to her, and she looked us in the eye and she spoke with such clarity and such confidence. It was such an amazing moment to see such positive development with that particular student. So as I mentioned before, for their AusSwim qualification, students will be reaching out to other facilities for their training hours. So if you are in the local area of Monash, there's some that are reaching out into the Maroondah area as well. You may have a couple of students come asking to complete their hours, and we really hope that you get to experience the same rewarding and beneficial experiences that we have with the students so far. I just have a quick video here, which is just Matt interviewing one of our students, Caleb. Apologies, I'm going to go back because the sound isn't working on that. I'm just going to fix, because as much as there's the subtitles on it, it's much nicer hearing. Let me just reshare my screen. Sorry, computer sound this time. Okay, let's try that again.
So, Caleb, how are you finding your first couple of weeks at Active Monash?
It's been pretty good. I'm enjoying it. Love the lifeguards. Met some new friends who love about lifeguarding, which is really good. Love the course I'm doing.
And what are some of the people that you've loved working with?
What happened? Try that again.
So, Caleb, how are you finding your first couple of weeks at Active Monash?
It's been pretty good. I'm enjoying it. Love the lifeguards. Met some new friends who love about lifeguarding, which is really good. Love the course I'm doing.
And what are some of the people that you've loved working with?
Have to be Justin and Michael.
And what roles did Justin and Michael have?
They've got lifeguarding and duty management.
Is there any particular part of your job that you've really enjoyed so far?
Would have to be the lifeguarding.
Yeah.
Senior lifeguarding.
So tell me a bit about what you do outside of the IPP, what you do outside of school.
I play footy, cricket and basketball, which is very cool.
And so, tell me about what your family thinks about being part of this program.
They're very proud of me doing this course, and I'm really enjoying it, which is good. And I thought at the start I wouldn't like it, but since I came here, it's been great and fun.
What do you do on your TAFE days?
What do I do? So we go on the computers and we do a little summary of what we did at Active Monash. Like, for an example, me and Jack did lifeguarding together, and what were the lifeguarding people telling us examples about lifeguarding.
What's a task that you've really learnt a lot about when you're lifeguarding?
Speaking on the walkie-talkie and telling them what time they want their lunch breaks and other stuff.
Cool. Okay, so just to sum up the IPP program in particular, this is a quote from one of our day supervisors. So IPP is going to be so life-changing for so many people, including the Active Monash team, the students and their families. The inclusion opportunity will help us to understand that people with a disability want to be included and have a right to be treated equally and have opportunities for meaningful careers. I feel very honoured to be included in this program. I think this really highlights best the relationship that's currently being formed between the IPP students and our Active Monash teams that are working directly with the kids. Our staff have really enjoyed working with the students and watching their skill sets develop, and cannot wait to see where this program takes them for that meaningful career later in life. So if you have any questions around any of the programs that we're running at the moment, the IPP program, our active communities, and how we're getting those off the ground, by all means, please drop me an email and I'll do my absolute best to help you out. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mandy. And there actually is one question that's come through that you might be able to answer briefly.
Yep.
Is there a certificate that Holmes Glen provide for the students at the end of this training course?
So what we're focusing on is the students having those industry qualifications. It is looking to extend in later years with the program continuing for it to include health and fitness as well. But my understanding at the moment is it's not particularly a certificate 3 in anything. It's more just that blended opportunity to obtain industry qualifications and industry experience prior to their applications to work within leisure and rec. But it's definitely developing. Holmes Glen and Wise Employment have previously done a partnership with a major hospital in Melbourne, and students went through that way. So again, they weren't receiving a certificate through that particular program, but where they're doing their placement. I hope that helps.
Yeah, perfect. It does. And having chatted to one of the, I guess, creators of this program, someone who previously developed this program overseas in the hospitality industry as well. So it's coming to Aquatics, but it's sort of not a completely new concept. It's something that's been proven and just rolled out, and they're hoping to roll it out across, I guess, more areas in the future. So yeah, great program there. I love that your comment saying that diversity and inclusion is embedded within your employment process. It's not like a separate document. It's just you have diversity and inclusion processes embedded in what you do. And I really love the idea of the learn to float classes as well, because we all talk about learn to swim, but I know specifically from a multicultural perspective, a lot of people say or think they can swim as soon as they can float. Your perception is sort of different, but we know if someone can float, it's going to make them a lot safer around the water. So just an sort of alternate view on learning to swim there. I really like that. Okay, so if you've got any more questions, guys, I know there was 1 or 2 more coming through. We might save them for a bit later, but pop them in the chat. We'll pop Mandy's email address in there as well. Next speaker that we have is Brendan from the City of Melbourne. So Brendan Parker is the Manager of Leisure Facilities at the City of Melbourne. Brendan has vast experience in sport and recreation facility management, extensive skill set in people management, financial management, effective communication and business development. So it says his LinkedIn profile anyway, with management roles over the past 15 years. They've included work with LGA, sporting associations, private sporting clubs. Brendan brings a big wealth of knowledge and experience. And I know Brendan's team have recently hired one of our cold youth trainees at the North Melbourne Aquatic Centre as a seasonal lifeguard for the upcoming season. So well done on that, Brendan. And yeah, welcome, Brendan, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yep. You see the screen okay, Michael?
I can see you, yeah.
Not the share screen?
Not the share screen.
Okay, just give me a couple of minutes.
But once again, everyone, if there are any questions in the chat, our team can answer them on the spot, or we'll have a Q&A after our next couple of speakers.
Okay, here we go. That should work now. Sorry, it's just loading from my end. Technology.
Yeah, that's it. If only it would have been much nicer in person, but
yeah, while it's loading up, I'll just thank you for the opportunity to chat today. And look, I think the industry's in great hands with some of the stories that we've just heard, and particularly with Rahul. I think what an inspiration. I think definitely the family and your colleagues should be very proud. So big thumbs up and good luck for your career. Now, has that come up yet, Michael, at all?
it hasn't. No.
Right.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, if you just want to. Well, that was up momentarily.
All right. How's that?
Yep. If you just want to, yeah, start the actual presentation, and then that should be fine.
No worries. Okay, so you can see my share screen now?
Yep.
Yep, perfect. So I guess, oh, it's gone again. Sorry. What we might do, are you happy to go to the next speaker? And I'll just...
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, no problems. So, Mohammed, are you all ready to have a chat now? I'll introduce Mohammed first of all. So I know Mohammed quite well. We've worked together for a few years, and he'll fill in a bit more about his story. But he's played numerous roles within, I guess, the aquatics industry, and also as a as a community advocate for water safety as well. So he's very in touch with community work, supporting his local Somali community with a group of friends as well. So welcome, Mohammed.
Good morning, Michael. It's good to see everyone.
Thank you for joining us. So I will say that Mohammed now is working with the Banyul Council as a youth program support officer. So he's sort of heavily involved in community development. But I guess to start with, Mohammed, where did this all start for you? I know you're in community work now and you're working at Ivanhoe Pool as a lifeguard, but how did this all sort of come to be, say 4 or 5 years ago?
Well, that's a really good question, Michael. It started from when I finished school. I was always not a good, strong swimmer, so I always had to feel the water, and that was always with me. So I was very glad to have spoken with my friend of mine, Abdullahi. He was the first person who I knew who was a lifeguard, and the thought of a Somali person being a lifeguard was strange, very strange to me. So hearing that, I couldn't believe it. We had a conversation about some sort of opportunity for me to find work. And he told me that I should get in contact with David Holland. So what David did was David told me the opportunity of, getting some swimming lessons in and learning how to swim. So it took me around, I think it was around the end of 2018, it took me around 6 months just to learn how to swim. And from that, I became good enough to become a lifeguard. So I became a lifeguard after doing the training, and I was very fulfilled. Like, it was very satisfying to, look for work now.
Yeah, for sure. And when I first met you, when you were, you formed that connection with David Holland, getting into the Learn to Swim classes. I think I met you a little bit after that, when you started to run the swimming classes for the youth, with the group that you formed, Beyond Youth. So tell us a bit about Beyond Youth.
Well, no problem, Michael. I thought to myself, hey, if I can become a lifeguard, I think everyone else in my community can become a lifeguard as well. So this opportunity started going through my mind and thinking, how can I make this happen? And Abdullahi, the friend who helped me before, said, hey, why don't we start an NGO and call it Beyond Youth and try to create a program with LSV. So we got in contact with LSV and David again, and got in contact with another pool, and that helped us create a program which will help the Somali kids evidently become a swim teacher or a lifeguard. And that was on every Saturday from like 3 to, I think it was 1 to 3. And it was a very successful program. We had up to 20 participants come every Saturday from the 2 runs that we had so far. So it's been very successful.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that you said, Abdullah, you got yourself into swimming. A few of the other boys that you founded that youth group with are also pool lifeguards or involved in, I guess, the community work of recruiting people for, you know, sport and recreation and wellbeing activities. I remember there was a photo that was in the newspaper about maybe 3 years ago. I think there was maybe a dozen lifeguards and swim teachers. Your sister was one of those swim teachers in the newspaper. You weren't quite ready yet, but your sister was.
Yeah, definitely. I actually remember that photo. It was in the newspaper. I remember seeing my two sisters actually in the newspaper with Abdullahi there as well. So it was amazing seeing my community, the Somali community, be in that kind of limelight. As well as that, Beyond Youth actually grew from the LSV program. I want to add on to that. LSV helped us create our first program, which is a swimming program, and that evidently helped us create even more programs to support our community, or our Somali community. We had a public speaking program which helped the Somali kids become more confident in their speaking skills, as well as communicate efficiently and effectively to an audience. We also had a fitness program. So we had a female fitness program. We helped the Somali women and kids actually do some sort of fitness within a gym, where it was actually protected for their privacy, so they could actually do it in private without worrying about, you know, the public looking at them. So we draw praise to LSV for helping us out and grow.
Thanks for having it. And you've helped us a lot though as well. I notice you're on the beach in California right now, but you've worked for us on the beach, and Abdullah here as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, my opportunity started from LSV, as you know, and that helped me and David speak a lot more. And then that conversation started to arise of me becoming an instructor, so a multicultural instructor on the beaches. And I was surprised working at the beach, and you know, having fun was something I couldn't believe was possible, but it actually was. And we went to various beaches around Victoria, teaching water safety to multicultural communities, teaching them about, like, you know, flags and some beach games as well, like flags as well. And you know, it was actually amazing, and I enjoyed my time there. I think I started from the summer of 2019, and ever since then I kept on coming back and enjoying it.
Yeah, unreal. And you got the biggest smile on the beach as well. And I'm sure all of this community work on the beach and at Northcote Pool as a lifeguard and everything has led you to what you are doing now. So I guess tell us a bit about what you are doing now, and maybe a bit about the program that you're doing in partnership with Vanual Leisure and Himalo, and how that's all working.
Oh, that was an amazing question. It started, I believe, after I finished my season off with LSV. Banjul City Council came up to me and said, "Hey, we've seen you do a lot of community work and working with a lot of communities. Would like you to support our youth within Banjul City Council." So they asked me to if I could work there, and I've been working there since the beginning of the year, and it's been very fun work. Funny enough, we created a program with the Himilo program, so the Himilo organization, which is like a Somali-led organization, to help them create more lifeguards within the Banjul City Council. So that is a swimming program which teaches participants how to swim, and also teaching some amazing skills of how to become a great lifeguard and swim teacher. And we had a great participants from that as well. Due to COVID, we didn't get to have as much sessions, but it's been an amazing turnout so far.
Yeah, I guess the thing with this program is as well, you know, the council has sought some funding to put a bit more time and effort into it. So it will be not only swimming lessons, which was your pathway, but it's going to be an extended program that kind of doesn't really have a final endpoint. And as well as swimming lessons, it is going to be training about how to become a lifeguard or how to become a swim teacher. So when these participants do arrive at the LSD training course for swim teaching or lifeguarding, they'll already have the skills and confidence to complete that course. So I think that's a really cool part of it. And then the link with Himalo Youth, we talked about collaborations in the IPP program with Active Monash, and this is a good collaboration that you're forming as well to get that employment or boost the employment skills of participants. So yeah, I think it's really interesting, and you're obviously an integral part coming from an aquatics background, but also doing a lot in your community. So well done, Mohammed.
No problem, Michael. Thank you so much. I just wanted to add on as well the importance of a person who can actually communicate that, you know, the importance of swim teaching as well, and like water safety. I remember David said this as well. You become the promoter of water safety once you are a lifeguard and so on. So I feel like, as Rahul said before, people in your community start coming to you and saying, hey, you're a lifeguard. How is that possible? What is that? So I feel like, you know, I draw praise to LSV, but also I think I've become a beacon to my community for someone to come to when something related to water safety, which is absolutely, you know, amazing. And I'm always happy to, you know, answer questions and anything with that as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Mohammed. Great note to finish on. And if anyone does have any questions for Mohammed, once again, just put him in the chat. But yeah, I think Mohammed's pretty much reflected everything, everything of the morning, the theme of the morning perfectly. Brendan, are you ready to go now?
Yeah, good to go.
Oh, there we go.
Very good. So yeah, we certainly the industry's certainly in good hands, and I think the last 18 months in particular, there's been a great need for resilience and also some diversity inclusion embedded, and I too like that word that we're embedding diversity inclusion into our entire workforce. So the presentation I'm about to go through is more a reflection on the last 18 months from a staffing perspective, but also what City of Melbourne or Active Melbourne are looking at doing inside, in particular, the recreation and waterway space. So I thought I'd start. We're probably all sick of all these words and terms, and it's certainly created a lot of fatigue amongst all staff and all industry leaders. Look, some of these are going to be with us for a long time, but I guess from my perspective, with 80 odd staff in amongst the two facilities in my portfolio, it's been testing, and the well-being of all individuals is something that we need to be mindful of. But yeah, hopefully in this presentation you don't hear a lot of this, but it's reality now, and we must move on with it. So resilience through adversity. I guess our industry has been resilient through the 18 months of chaos. I guess it's important that we never lose sight that the community is number one. And suddenly, in the blink of an eye, we weren't there anymore for community from a traditional means point of view. I guess how we would recover through uncertainty of what's coming and what still is coming, we don't know. But all we've got to rely on is what we do well, and from a pool safety, from a community provider point of view, I think it's something we've got to keep falling back on and never lose sight of that. So I guess from pre-March 2020 and then onwards, I guess we assumed that our leaders who continually took on daily challenges in the workplace, we're going to be fine. It's just another challenge, COVID. Well, how wrong we were. You know, the industry lost talent, and we've heard with the although the swim teacher shortage is something that's been going for a while, I guess it's really hit home through the COVID period. And I think it hasn't been just swim teachers. I think we've lost a lot of talent through lifeguarding, duty supervisors and so on. So I guess the thought process for all this is we'll just recruit again and all will be sweet. Well, I guess this is where having the attention to detail and having the commitment through diversity and inclusion in our workforce, that we've got to spend time in opening our horizons a lot more in terms of our candidates and what we're looking for in particular. And the other one, perception, I guess, was the community will return to our facilities when it's over, and we returned back to our pre-March 2020 business model. Well, we found, I think it's been a circuit breaker for the industry, where the virtual settings that a lot of facilities have relied on and have implemented is probably something that's going to be instilled now for future business models. And I think we've had to look a lot closely at our membership types, at our membership offerings. Are we accessed enough for everyone? It's been just something that we've had to look through all this. Thanks, Ali. So little we knew that the industry would be closed for 200 days and counting. The active Melbourne role, function and position changed. We changed our position. Being a recreation and waterways branch, we branded the process of lockdown and as raw resilience, we called it. And we would embody a resilient mindset during the unprecedented times. What happened next, particularly for our direct service staff, has been just a fantastic opportunity, as I'll go through shortly when we change screens. So the virtual became core business. So digital increase with engagement, the virtual group fitness classes, virtual water safety and cooking shows, which most facilities have done. We've been lucky enough through our partnership with Techno Gym to have a landing of an active Melbourne app, which is a Netflix of workouts and some live workouts, which from an inclusion point of view, 55% of females participated in that over that time. On the return, we've seen a growth in outdoor pool visitation, which again heightens the fact of our commitment to provide a safe environment. And without lifeguards, without swim teachers, we don't have that environment. And group fitness participation, that social connectedness and digital impact, again, is something that I think is going to be here to stay for a little while longer. But the key thing we found was the community wants that social connectedness that got taken off them for that 200-day period. So through that period, the City of Melbourne didn't stand down any of our rec facility staff through that period, which is a fortunate position that those staff were granted, I guess. So what happened was lifeguards, leisure service officers, gym instructors and duty supervisors, they all become redeployed in different essential services. So they were part of a joint response between the State Emergency Services, DHHS and the City of Melbourne to assist in the residents of the North Melbourne residential towers during the enforced isolation and lockdown. That becomes a humbling and rewarding experience for staff, but from an inclusion point of view too, it's that familiarity with a face to come back to the facilities. So that became such a powerful experience. They become park rangers to help promote social distancing, keeping our open spaces safe. Again, that community engagement that can be brought back to the facilities is just priceless. And they also become business concierge support officers, supporting businesses affected by lockdown and providing business owners with hope through grants and support packages. So adversity created opportunity, appreciation, the social engagement behaviours that staff got from that, and also the health and well-being of us being able to keep ourselves strongly connected to an organisation and also a working life. Then from a diversity inclusion point of view, it's a broad topic. It's got no ceiling in sight. And some of the questions I pose here from a rhetorical point of view have been answered in the presentation so far. And it's about, inclusion and diversity is not just about membership types, it's not just about events we run, prime classes. Are our staff team diverse? Is it embedded in our system? Do we provide the best training and education? Well, LSV's leading the way on that from a lifeguarding and pool safety perspective. Do our programs and services discriminate? If we sat down and looked at all the programs and services that we provide in the industry, I think we'll find that do we provide access for all? Maybe not. And does our community feel safe in our facilities? Is it a second home? So I think from a targeted cohort point of view, I think the focus on mental health, social connectedness, women and girls, the underrepresented, older adults, youth, cold communities, particularly in what we've just gone through in the last 18 months, has compounded the need for us as an industry to be very mindful of the offerings and the environment we provide going forward. And all of us should keep striving to make access easy. Networking is an industry, I think, is a key component of this, and this is a real great platform for this. And I know ARV are doing a similar thing where you know, the networks are meeting regularly to really help get through this tough period, but also embed for the future. I thought I'd also touch on, just from a high level, the active Melbourne brand positioning over the next 4 years from a diversity and inclusion point of view. So I guess we want to be seen to be offering a world of choice. We want to be giving everyone an opportunity to participate, to access in whatever they want to do, but having that world of choice for those individuals, making an everyday better you for each individual, having accessible for all, and adding your own chapter as well. So I think the real focus from the City of Melbourne's point of view is very much on what we're talking about today, that diversity and inclusion, but without having a systematic, I guess, framework in place, it won't be sustainable. So I think based on what we've heard today and what City of Melbourne are currently doing as well, I think we're in a really good place from an industry point of view. So thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, Brendan. And just echoing what our speakers have been talking about today with embedding diversity and inclusion within our processes. And good to see the position that you were in able to redeploy your staff throughout the COVID period so that you did retain so many workers. We will get into some questions now before we go into our breakout rooms in about 10 minutes or so. If anyone has any questions for the chat, I know a couple have come through already as the sessions have gone on. We'll get our panel to answer them. As you're thinking of your questions for the panel, we've got Mohammed, Brendan, Mandy, Travis still around and able to answer any of the questions. I guess I'll throw it out to any of the four of you. Why have you pursued these offerings? So you've still got different programs and different policies that you've embedded and different things that you're doing. What sort of kickstarted it and why was it sort of a good idea? If anyone wants to jump in.
I will. We participated in what feels like a million years ago, the Inclusive Leisure Initiative, back in 2007, 2008, quite some time ago. And to see the benefit at that point in time was very disability focused. Multicultural and called was not really included in it, but to see that benefit that those within our community were getting from accessing our facility, it almost becomes addictive to be able to provide more and more and more opportunities for the community to be able to come in and just be a part of everything and have all, or as many as possible, barriers just dropped at the door, come in and enjoy and be a part of our organisation's family. You know, it's like pulling on a thread. As soon as you just give it a little tug, just more and more and more comes out, and it's all the training opportunities that we've found. You just get so much deeper into it, and you just can't stop, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess that's sort of that leads into another question that I have that someone else might want to jump in on. Have you seen a change in culture, attitude, and retention? I guess in the people attending your facility or your staff since you've started, I guess, going heavier into diversity and inclusion policies and programming?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that one, Michael. From a retention piece, the people coming through the program are definitely retained for a longer period of time. They're there for the long haul. But when we talk about change of culture, I think the change of culture is actually in the management, myself included. When I first started, it was very much, when I was introduced to this program, the priority was all around water awareness and safety and reducing the drownings, and I sort of struggled to grasp the big picture, the end game that took David a couple of years of sort of mentoring me, so to say, and sort of actually understanding that there's real value in taking people on in employment opportunities beyond water safety and getting your local community champions involved. It was almost, you take it for granted how powerful it is. And Mehmed talked about it himself, sees himself as a champion, and you really do take that for granted till you see it firsthand. And I think to talk about change of culture, myself as a manager and my leaders that appoint these lifeguards, you really got to take them on the journey around the why for them to buy in and to see the end game. And it probably took me a couple of years too long to get into that to that space, but we're humming now. But definitely that's the culture that changed.
Just on that too, Michael, it's a great point what Travis has made. I think it does happen up the management level, and I think removing barriers continually and providing pathways and opportunities, I think that stems from us, and it needs to be a priority, particularly more in particular now. So I think the less barriers there are, the more ease of access in building a career is going to happen. So it's about making it a priority.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, both of yourselves have sat down with myself or David over the years and discussed ways to make it easier for people to go through the training and becoming employable. And then, as Mohammed has been an example of, and his final point was, each person becomes a role model to the rest of their community. Case in point, having a dozen people in the Herald Sun, all from the northern suburbs Somali community, all in a lifeguard or swim teacher uniform, inspires others. And in a culture shift, I guess an example that comes to mind for me is in the western suburbs, large Burmese Karenni community out there, lots of people from that Southeast Asia area. We started working with them in a lot of learn to swim programs many years ago at the start of our department, maybe 13, 14 years ago. And some of the mums are still there swim teaching. The children, like we've just had year on year of children coming into the centre wanting swimming lessons. And now at first, we fund a lot of the swimming lessons, and now it's in their culture, they value the cost of the swimming lessons. They're starting to pay memberships to attend the pool and pay for swimming lessons themselves, because that culture within the communities have sort of been embedded, but it has taken a while, and almost a generational sort of change to have that impact. So that's sort of more from a point of view of attending the facility, but you look around that facility and there are a number of lifeguards who reflect that community in the western suburbs. One final one that I might just throw out there as well. I guess, is there anything, what type of facility might these offerings benefit most? I mean, the easy thing to say might be everyone. But what sort of facility would be able to best take up these sort of programs and initiatives?
Well, the facility that we're running, obviously aquatic facilities align really well to the water safety messaging. So it's obviously a big area that attracts the particular program we run, and the positions, probably we've talked about lifeguards today, but there is really an opportunity for swim teachers as well to get more active in that space. And we heard in the presentation a little earlier from Liz and Co around the position we're in as an industry for swim lesson teachers. And we first came out of COVID, it was not enough lifeguards. Now it's swim teachers, but that seems to be more of a long-term issue. So I think there's a real opportunity to try and make something happen if someone's brave enough to do something in swimming lessons.
Yeah, for sure. I like what Brendan said as well. It sort of does start from the top quite often. We always find that that these programs work well when there's buy-in from sort of the higher level or management teams from the facilities, and also when there is a, I guess, diverse community already existing, already attending the facilities. Mohammed, is there anything that you'd like to finish on? I guess from a community perspective, how you might draw in people from your community, or what might be easier for people from diverse communities to attend or participate?
No problem, Michael. Thank you so much. The one thing I can say is to follow our Beyond Youth Instagram. So it's Beyond Youth INC, to catch up on any programs you'd like to do, or if you want to collaborate with us in any other way, please contact us through there. And as well as that, Michael, I'd like to thank you guys for giving the opportunity to speak, you know, having that chance to be out here and talk and say what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Awesome, and yeah, plenty of good stuff on the Beyond Youth Instagram page. But there's the thing with Beyond Youth, it's a great community organisation, you know, created and run by young people. But if you dig down enough and get in touch with the community through council or various groups, you know, Centre for Multicultural Youth, Brotherhood of St Lawrence, these sort of community organisations, there's great groups doing these sort of similar things all around Melbourne, all around Victoria. We will close off the panel and discussion now, and if there are any further questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But we will go to breakout rooms now. So I will just run through what each of the breakout rooms will be, and then you can make a decision on which one you want to attend. So session A will be swimming and water safety education. So that's where we hear about resources being developed and programs on offer to support English language school students in their school swimming programs. A sneak peek into the new look and feel for Victorian Water Safety Certificate, which includes the new competencies and new support resources, and Liz White from the Department of Education and Training will be in that session. So we will stay here. So education stream. Sorry, there will be a link to the education session, which will go in the Q&A section of the chat. If you want to go there, all the link is on the screen now. So yeah, we'll also put that in the chat. So education stream, you can click that link. If you want to stay here, that will automatically flick to the pool safety and operations. So Alec will run through some things, a detailed session on risk management and development of aquatic supervision plans in line with guidelines for the safe pool operations. Alec will deliver some learnings from the last 12 months on pool safety assessments and his own view in complying with risk management and supervision sections of the GSPO. So if you want to join the education chat or the education stream, you can go to the link that Lisa has just put up, or stay here for the pool safety stream. And each of those will begin in the next minute or two.
Thanks guys for hanging around. I can still see 25 people in this room. I'm not sure whether people are having difficulty getting to the education stream link. It is not the same type of event as this one. It is more of a meeting environment, that one, but in this version, we're staying with the live stream just as a continuity. So earlier, Michael introduced me, but I'll just introduce myself again. My name's Alec Olszewski. I'm the manager of Aquatic Industry Services here at Lifesaving Victoria. We were previously known as the Pool Safety Department, which admittedly was a little bit narrow, and we've recently, on July 1st, opened up as Aquatic Industry Services. We are here predominantly to support this industry and to deliver aquatic industry services across a raft of services. Today, I'm going to do a bit of a presentation on risk management, supervision plans, and how these interact with the GSPO. My piece isn't wholly research-based, but it's observational. So I'm not referring to research as such. It's observational, and to a degree, it represents my opinion more so than any others. So I just start with that as a caveat to the presentation that I'm going to give. Following my presentation, we will wrap up the AFAR session, and at 1:30 this afternoon we have our masterclass kicking off, which for those that have registered is a Zoom link to a Zoom presentation this afternoon. Sorry, I've just been corrected. It's 1 p.m. that's kicking off. Thanks, Sheila. 1 p.m. this afternoon, and it is via a Zoom link. You can, I believe, still register for that program. If you want to register for that program, head along to the Lifesaving Victoria website, have a look at the Pool Safety tab or the Aquatic Industry Services tab, depending on whether they've updated that at this point, and find the drop down for AFAR, which is the Aquatic Fitness and Recreation tab. There is a link to join that Zoom event this afternoon there. Okay, let's kick off. So today I'm talking predominantly about supervision planning, and over the last 12 months LSV has embarked upon a supervision planning service and supervision consultative service in line with the GSPO, but also to meet the needs of industry people that are looking to develop their supervision planning in their individual facility. I'm going to dive into supervision planning from the perspective of the GSPO, but the GSPO in itself covers risk management, and it also covers supervision plans. And I want to highlight some of the observations that I've come to since I've started to join LSV, and I've only been at LSV since March. Previous to that, I was the Assets and Infrastructure Manager at Western Leisure Services, which run 3 facilities in the Wyndham area, and I held a position there for 5 years in areas of operations, lifeguard management, and also assets and infrastructure, so facilities and IT roles. So I come with an operational perspective and an interpretation of the GSPO from that perspective. So let me jump into my presentation. Approximately 12 months ago, my colleague and my boss here at Lifesaving Victoria, Andy Dennis, who's the General Manager of Pool Safety and Public Training, presented on the perfect storm. And the perfect storm, as it was known then, was anticipating, and this was in September 2020, anticipating the summer that would be. So a summer affected by COVID, with the unwinding of lockdowns and the public messaging to tell us to avoid mass gatherings. We had a pandemic response, volunteer lifesavers having concerns about patrolling potential during COVID-19 hotspots, and the curtailing of LSV social enterprise activity through that year, leading into a summer that was anticipated to be one of the worst summers on record. And some of the things that came to fruition throughout the summer that was, traditional water safety messages were at odds with COVID safe principles, and were in a struggle to coexist. People were and did swim and recreated in areas where there were no water safety services, and there was an unprecedented reduction in community preparedness for water safety due to COVID-19 restrictions. That meant that people weren't getting their swimming lessons, they weren't participating in regular swimming, and fitness levels did drop. Also, for the remainder of the LSV community, we had uncertain levels of volunteer lifesaving leading into last summer, and there was difficulty in planning the summer with water safety response, given the potential need for upscaling throughout. So that was the 2020 situation. Warmer weather combined with reduced interstate and international travel, pools hit lockout early and hit COVID capacities early. Patrol beaches hit capacity. There was a reduced ability to visit cooler environments, shops and cinemas, because they were also closed, and people attended other waterways with fewer safety messages. So that was a bit of context for me as to why supervision is potentially more important than ever before, and why we need to get our supervision planning right. We have, unfortunately, some pretty heavy reading to draw upon. Over the last couple of years, we've seen an increase in drowning and an increase in drowning to the current 10-year average. And we also have recent incidents at leisure centres. There's the Watermark incident of 2014, which has significant notoriety from a coroner's perspective, like by the Ascot Vale incident in 2014. But to give you context, LSV is aware of at least another 4 serious incidents at leisure facilities this year. And I'm in an unfortunate position to say that at least 3 of those were or are likely to be fatal incidents. And that's just year to date. So supervision planning is vastly important. Touching on risk management. Now, risk management is a complex process, and quite often we're asked to deliver it in facility with very little sort of context as to how risk management works in the broader organisation. And as you can see, there's often different levels of risk management required. Most organisations will start with a framework. They'll develop that into principles, and in turn processes will be developed at the frontline level. And quite often the framework starts with evaluation, if you like, in the lower corner of the situation, commitment to improvement, looking at integrating existing situations, designing new framework, and then re-implementing a framework. So starting with implementation, evaluation, improvement, integration, etc., etc. In turn, there are value principles that are required to integrate with that sort of top level framework, if you like, that exists at the top end of organisations. And at the bottom of organisations, a risk management process like the one here on the right tends to exist. So risk assessment, analysis of history of incidents, risk evaluation, discussion around risk treatment, recording and reporting, into communication and consultation, and back to the start. So processes at a frontline level that are occurring, and most of you will be familiar with risk management in these sort of theory ideals. from the GSPO, we have advocacy for robust risk management throughout our facilities. So all of these different arms have value proposition attached to having robust risk management. That is to say that if the robust risk management process exists, it should exist to, for example, ensure the safety and well-being of the workforce, or achieve and maintain compliance with all laws, regulations, guidelines, policies and procedure, or to maintain the community's confidences in the services that we deliver, but also to minimise negative impact on the organisation's activities and environment. So if we've got risk management right, we should be able to deliver on the spectra of these other outcomes from our risk management process. And in our risk management process, a lot of you will have all also seen the sort of levels of risk management. First of all, at the top of our pyramid here, the statutory requirements that we're looking to complete. A company constitution often sits under that statutory compliance. There's a board charter. The board in turn and the senior managers of an organisation will develop policies in relation to risk management. And further down the organisation, procedures and supporting documents are developed to deal with individual risks as they've been assessed out of the risk management process. But the question I put to you is what does risk management look like in aquatic facilities, and what's your experience? Because this is my experience. My experience is, and in the organisations that I've worked in, there is a vast gap between the policy, and I must say it's not all the organisations I've worked in, but in some of the organisations I've worked in and in some that I have seen, there is a gap between the policy framework and the procedures. I guess the people that are making decisions in an organisation and the doers at the bottom end of the facility. And so there is a massive gap between policy and procedure in and around risk management. Quite often a risk management policy will say we are all responsible within a given organisation for robust risk management, and then go on to list the biggest risks posed by that organisation that exists within that organisation, and who inevitably is responsible for those different types of risks. And in a number of, I must say, council policies that I've read recently and throughout the last 12 months, what we tend to see in those is actually a gap, and this, hence the big arrow here. There's not often a reference in the policy to an aquatic based risk. That is to say that the risk of drowning in a council-run aquatic facility is often not on the council's radar at a policy level, and it is only when you delve down into the organisation that you start to see that risk started to be addressed. You might say, hey, that's no real issue because the policy at a top level states that everybody's responsible for risk management in the organisation. So at some point in this organisation, there is a risk leader or a person that takes on that authority within that hierarchy. But unfortunately, there's also gaps here and here. So what we also tend to see in facilities that we're working with is that the procedures and supporting documents for those procedures don't tie in with the broader policies and broader strategies of that organisation, and that there is an incongruence between those two levels. That is, the policy doesn't talk to the procedure doesn't talk to the policy, and quite often the risk management process at an at a base level, at a facility level, doesn't necessarily tie in with the policies and procedures, and in turn this potentially reflects why at a policy level some organisations aren't aware of the aquatic risk that exists, as in there isn't a feedback loop to inform the managers that there is a major risk within some of these aquatic facilities. So I'm harking back to this slide. So risk management in aquatic facilities. There is a gap in the implementation, potentially. There is a gap in that the risk management framework and principles are not adequately customised enough to take into account the aquatic environment. They're not integrated enough such that the top level policy does not talk to the risk management process that's occurring on the ground and vice versa. And also the policy at the top end doesn't necessarily reflect the risks that are being felt by people at the bottom end. And in turn, in my opinion, this can mean that facilities don't necessarily achieve that robust risk management ideal that perhaps we are trying to fulfill. In general, a lot of us operators will say actually the risk management process is going well, but this is the only part of the process that we deal with and understand as operation managers in facilities. That is, that we understand the risks in our individual area, we identify, we risk analyse, we evaluate the risks that we're dealing with. We come to this risk treatment opportunity and we reach out and we ask and we say, hey, we need more resources to deal with this risk, and it doesn't necessarily make it to the decision makers, because at some point along the way our systems aren't customised enough, they aren't integrated enough to provide the feedback loop to our leadership teams, which are often fairly higher up the stream. So in a supervision planning cycle, like in risk management, this is operational best practices. This is what we at LSV aspire to suggest operation best practice looks like in risk management, in supervision planning. That is to say that you start with planning, you go through a communication and consultation process. The supervision plan is eventually implemented on a periodical basis. It's evaluated and monitored and reviewed by a leadership team within a facility, and in turn, improvement and management of that planning completes the cycle again. And quite often this occurs in facilities at an operations manager level or a centre manager level, and in a lot of facilities it does also occur in sort of an area manager level. But I would contend that there are very few aquatic facilities out there where the aquatic facility risks are absolutely and wholly understood by the head of authority within that risk management process. So often in a risk management policy or an OHS policy, there is a head of the authority. It can be the CEO of the organisation. It could be the CEO of a council, and in other organisations you might have a managing director or something along those lines. However, the head of the authority might not necessarily understand the actual risks on the ground. So what are the three main risks categories within supervision? And we will tell you, I hope it's already realised in the industry, that user risks, facility risks, and activity risks are the three risk areas combined that need to be analysed. And in the joining of these three is where supervision planning must sit. So, from a statutory perspective, we have, of course, we have the OHS Act above where we currently sit in Victoria, and we must abide by the OHS Act in what is reasonably practicable to implement within our facilities, and the head of the authority within a particular facility is liable absolutely to that act, I guess, but everybody has a responsibility under the legislation. In Victoria, and it's still not widely known, but perhaps ought to be more widely known. Code of practice was introduced following the coronial inquests at both Greensborough and Ascot Vale that encodes the GSPO into a legislative framework, if you like, as the minimum standard that facilities should achieve in delivering aquatic services. That's both public pools and the various versions of how public pools can come about. That's that is to say, body corporate pools, school swimming pools, and private swim schools are also covered under the GSPO. At an organisational level, most organisations have a risk management policy and framework, and many of our aquatic facilities have a supervision plan and supporting document. However, if you recall earlier when I talked through this, the line of separation occurs here between policies and procedure. So does your organisation, do the heads of authority in your organisation have a thorough understanding of the procedure, of the supervision procedure and the requirements under the GSPO, or is your policy broad and not specific in identifying this? Do the registers that are the supporting documents get read by the those that are in heads of authority within the organisation? And is the head of authority within the organisation the person that is responsible for the supervision procedure? That's the question I put to you. So what does the GSPO say? The GSPO, there's a line missing. There we go. GSPO under 2.2.1 says the owner or operator of an aquatic facility should include a risk management policy relevant to the aquatic facility as part of its framework. So if in your organisation there is a broad risk management policy, say at a council level, my question is, does the owner or operator of the aquatic facility include a risk management policy framework that is relevant to the aquatic facility as part of the framework? And if not, what can be done to implement it? Likewise here, ISO, the Australian standard and international standard 3100, top management and oversight bodies should demonstrate and articulate their continual commitment to risk management through a policy, a statement, or other forms that clearly convey an organisation's objectives and commitment to risk management. So those two together is aquatic facility covered in that process. Likewise, on the side here, the GSPO says there is a mandate and commitment to designing a framework for managing risk that is specific, for implementing risk management, for monitoring the framework, for managing the risk and continual improvement of the framework. So the suggestion there is that not only the supervision plan needs to be looked at, but before you can even embark on a supervision plan, actually this is wrong. You could embark in any order on this, but you also need to ensure that your risk management procedures at an organisational level or at a facility level encompass a process of continual monitoring and continual evaluation to ensure that you are correctly managing the risks. And please, please, please ensure that your heads of authority, the people that are signing off on the risk management process, understand that. And where to start with the risk management process? Well, the first 8 sections of the GSPO, and this is the new GSPO in the version online through the Royal Lifesaving Society website, literally spell out how to implement a risk management framework that is relevant to aquatic facilities. You could go line by line through this and develop a process. If that doesn't fall within the process that you have within your organisation, there's an opportunity to get your risk people involved, to get them understanding the requirements here, and to introduce maybe a aquatic level procedure or aquatic level policy that will help manage the risks within that facility. So again, I hark back to the gaps that we looked at earlier, and I won't go into too much detail here. Again, risk management policy framework needs to support the documents that are and the supervision plan that are happening lower in the organisation, and they need to talk to one another. And the legislation or the legislative environment includes the GSPO, so there is a requirement at the top end of the organisation that there is an understanding to these factors. So, does the supervision plan incorporate or accompany an appropriate supervision risk assessment? And this is supporting documentation. So, risk management 2.2.1 of the GSPO, owners and operators of aquatic facilities should design their aquatic risk management framework to ensure that information about risks and their management are reported and used as a basis for decision making and accountability at all levels within your organisation. So it doesn't just say supervision needs to be the responsibility of the operations team. What it says here is that all risks within the facility and within the structure need to be managed, and they need to be managed similarly. So you can't treat supervision different to other risks, and other risks can't be treated different to supervision. There should be a robust process to identify, measure and report on the nature and level of risks, make decisions about treating risks, monitor the consistency of the decision, and monitor the risks and strategies in place to manage them and make them work. And one of the key ways that we see this fall down when we come out to facilities is there will be a risk assessment that's completed on supervision, but it won't be on the risk management framework template that has been provided by the risk management process, or the risk management template doesn't necessarily enable the user to adequately put the risks in place or articulate them, or as part of the risk management framework, the people that are doing the risk assessments aren't formally trained in doing risk assessments, so they miss key opportunities to actually address facility risks or activity risks or user risks, for which the user or the person that is doing the risk assessment is quite familiar, but because they're not used to a risk management a risk assessment process, don't articulate well enough that it actually feeds back into the system adequately. Does your risk assessment provide for the head of authority and other officers in your organisation with the knowledge of the risks inherent to your organisation's operations? So is there somebody at your facility or somebody higher up that adequately understands these risk assessments that's signing them off? Was the risk assessment just done and put aside and never fed back into that process? Does your risk assessment identify who will own the risk? And does it allow you to monitor how effective your organisation is at responding to those risks? And can it provide stakeholders with increased confidence in your organisation's governance and ability to achieve its objectives? So this is actually a continuation of the GSPO statement from the slide before. Does the supervision plan incorporate or accompany an appropriate supervision risk assessment? So on from the same question. Risk information can be qualitative and quantitative, and the owner or operator of an aquatic facility should use information from a range of sources to inform your risk management activities, including results from environmental scanning activities such as SWOT analyses, service delivery information, internal human resources and industrial relations information, Australian Bureau of Statistics reports, asset maintenance reports, insurance data, risk registers, etc., etc., etc. So often also when we're in a facility assessing people's risk assessments for supervision, we find that, okay, activity risks might have been covered, but in relation to this facility alone, and the activity risk is, well, that's never happened here, so we're not going to put much credence in the risk assessment. In turn, there's not many controls, and in turn, there's an opportunity to miss a particular activity. However, from other sources of data, from drowning reports, from findings from a coronial inquest, are you able to reasonably foresee what could happen between these risk factors and provide adequate documentation that supports you in creating both a robust risk management framework and a robust supervision plan. So onto the supervision plan itself, and this is what does the GSPO say of that? Supervision should be in place for all swimming pools, both indoors and outdoors, that are situated, constructed or installed on any non-residential premises or premise occupied by the Crown Authority or by a private body or public for public or commercial use. So this is to say that supervision needs to be in place at all swimming pools, except for those that are in somebody's backyard, in which case if you own a pool, you're probably supervising it anyway. But formally, supervision should be in place for all swimming pools, indoor and outdoor, that are situated, constructed or installed on any premises occupied by the Crown, any authority or any private body for public or commercial use. So not for private use, but public or commercial use. And from Lifeguarding 6th edition, which is the lifeguard manual referred to in the GSPO, planning for lifeguard supervision of an aquatic facility is an essential aspect of risk management. So we ought to be, as part of our robust processes in risk management, providing a lifeguard supervision plan. Has a plan been developed to establish the pool supervision from GSPO 2.2.2 under supervision? It should be sufficiently comprehensive to cover a full range of activities at the facilities, including non-routine activities such as maintenance or construction that could result in emergency situations. So this means that your facility supervision plan needs to be comprehensive and take into account all possibilities, including possibly the worst case scenarios for your supervision and how to deal with those circumstances. So it's not a light task to have to take on. In your supporting processes for your supervision plan, has a plan been developed to establish pool supervision? When we go out and assess supervision plans as part of a supervision assessment service that we provide here at LSV, we also look for the supporting information within the plan. Is there a table of contents? Is there a documented scope? Does the scope adequately cover the entire facility, or is it only for part of the facility, or does it go beyond the bounds of the facility? Are there a clear set of objectives? Does the procedure actually set about to change something? And other things that we often see missing: the data preparation, the summary of arrangements for how the supervision plan will be resourced, if it's not already covered in your risk management framework. We want to see a documented review process, as you would an emergency management plan. And finally, it's really important to have an understanding of who's authorising the procedure and who's wearing the risk of that procedure not being delivered. And I can tell you, when I was coming out of facility, I was last working at Aquapulse, it wasn't me, the operations manager, that was signing off on the supervision plan. It was the CEO of our organisation signing off on it. And I thank her for doing so. But she also had a really active role in understanding what those risks were throughout the organisation. Another question we often look for: the owner and operator of an aquatic facility should include within the supervision plan a map detailing significant aquatic facility and supervision information. And quite often we see a single map in a supervision plan that has, you know, X marks the spots, and this is where you should stand, and this is where the lifeguard deployment route is. But there's so much more opportunity to get things right within that. The name of the facility, street address, main entry, exit, alternative entrances, all of those are named in the GSPO under SB 6 13.4, and it goes on. The location of supervision resources, location of key physical barriers, the depth, length and width of swimming pools, including where all gradients start and finish, key black spots, location of supervision plan equipment, keys, access codes, the location of where temporary signage and safety equipment is to be, and first aid stations. And I think you can understand that if you try and put this all into a single map, then it gets very confusing, and we have seen that in some maps. So we strongly recommend here, and here's just an example facility that we did some work on, is we developed a number of different maps. First of all, one that shows the pool profile. So where line of sight barriers exist, and you'll note that there are internal pool walls at the end. We've got blinds in certain locations and glazed windows along certain locations. The locations of rescue tube, benches, etc. We've got the shallow end mentioned in this, and it really is only an example of a swimming pool. Secondly, within the supervision template the LSV produced, we did a separate map that shows when supervising from the south with no blinds. So if the blinds aren't up, this is the glare that this facility can particularly have. When supervising from the north, and so north obviously on the top end of this this map, or not obviously, but just for reference, and with the blinds down, there is still areas of glare within that facility that are hard to see. And finally, does the plan contain advice for practical deployment of pool supervisors? The development of the supervision plan, this is from the GSPO, should be undertaken through a structured process of identifying and analysing the potential aquatic risks. So it actually says you can't just say this is where you stand. It says go and analyse the risks, analyse the glare, analyse the activities that are occurring within your environment, and determine the supervision and policies to determine the supervision policies and procedures that should be prescribed. And in turn, you can start to develop a map that says, well, this is an okay spot to stand at the top end of that 25-metre pool, because when you're supervising from the north with the blinds down, you have the best opportunity to see it. However, we also need you to move, and there are less good spots available for your lifeguards to supervise from. The other pool that we looked at has a different profile, and in turn, this particular deployment plan talks about dual lifeguard deployment, but it equally talks about 3 lifeguard deployment, the zones they're responsible for, and the types of activities that can occur during those deployments. What else to consider? Well, the GSPO says you need to put a lot in your plan. Supervision policies should be developed and documented for the following: operational handovers and briefings, maintenance and cleaning of the aquatic facility, maintaining adequate level of supervision during times of staff absenteeism. So what is your process if a lifeguard doesn't rock up for opening a facility in the morning? If you normally have a 2 lifeguard system, what is the process for supervising during that incident, if you like? Because I can guarantee you every duty manager that comes along is inclined to do something slightly different to the next person over, and if they maintain, or if they maintain a different level of risk that you might, as the operations manager in that facility, they might be inclined to do something that's not within your plan. So ensuring that that they're well versed in that. Lifeguard positioning, including how rotation and breaks should occur. How patron activity and lifeguard activity is monitored and reported. What are the radio communication procedures, hand signals, whistles, etc. Equipment repair, lifeguard swimming line duty and policies around how that can occur. The use of mobile phones, supervision of specific user types, supervision of specific activities as well, and of specific environments. So a lot to consider and a lot to go into your plan. My view is keep it simple, keep it as simple and as understandable as you can, but try and keep it detailed as well. My view would be that if you can produce maps that provide lifeguards with practical one-page information, everything they need to know on a pool profile in a particular page, do so. But also be aware that your supervision plan needs to fall inside the context of your risk management framework within your within your organisation, and it needs regular checks. Aquatic Industry Services at LSV, as I said at the very start of this, we've been providing a service for 12 months now to assess supervision plans. We also provide a service to assist facilities in developing their own supervision plan. The bit that we cannot do for you is to embed your risk management processes, and in most organisations it's already embedded, but as I was saying earlier, there are gaps to how it's implemented at an aquatic facility level. There's opportunities for you as the operations manager, as the middle manager in your organisation, to feed back into that process, and I strongly advise you to do so to avoid worst case scenario. I've been Alec Olszewski. This has been Aquatic Fitness and Recreation PD series. If you have any feedback for us whatsoever, you can contact us on either of the contact details here. I'd like to thank all of our presenters for today, and all of the presenters for the valuable insights from a diversity and inclusion perspective. And I wish all of you the very best in the rest of your day. I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much.